Welcome to the ANEW Insight Podcast, empowering and inspiring your journey to optimal health. Hosted by Dr. Supatra Tovar, clinical psychologist, registered dietitian, fitness expert, and author of Deprogram Diet Culture. Rethink your relationship with food, heal your mind, and live a diet-free life. I follow my guests' journey to optimal health, providing you with the keys to unlock your own wellness path. Tune in and evolve with us. Hello and welcome. I am thrilled and honored to have esteemed psychiatrist and neuroscientist Dr. Helen Lavretsky with us today. Dr. Helen, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me, and good to be with you today.
Good to be with you too. I saw Dr. Helen's talk on breathwork at the American Psychiatric Association's conference in Los Angeles and was so impressed with her work, her dedication, and her interest in breathwork. I've always had an interest in breathwork and incorporate it with my clients to help with their mental health. So I just really wanted to get Dr. Helen on here so I could investigate breathwork further. Before we start, though, I'm going to read a little bit about Dr. Helen, and then we'll get right into our questions. Dr. Helen Lavretsky is a psychiatrist and neuroscientist whose lifelong fascination with healing the whole person was sparked during her early medical training, where she observed the powerful intersection between emotional resilience and physical well-being. As director of the Integrative Psychiatry program at UCLA and a professor in the Department of Psychiatry, she has dedicated her career to exploring how ancient mind-body practices like breathwork can transform brain function, reverse biological aging, and support trauma recovery. Her research combines clinical neuroscience with Eastern wisdom, using tools like fMRI, genomics, and heart rate variability to uncover how conscious breathing shapes emotional regulation and enhances mental health. Through her work, Dr. Lavretsky is helping redefine what true healing means in psychiatry. Dr. Helen, welcome.
Thank you. Yes,
Well,
for your kind introduction as well.
you are amazing, and I was really impressed with your talk on breath work. So I'd love to dive in. I really love to explore inspiration, and you have had an amazing career in psychiatry and neuroscience. Just tell us what initially inspired you to explore breath work as a clinical tool for healing trauma and improving mental health.
Right. So it was all through my own experience with yoga. And I knew nothing about yoga until I needed it as a tool to cope with my stress, the amount of stress that I was under due to my career pressures and also family and raising a son, coming from all angles and taking care of my parents. Um, and I had no reliable tools to turn to in my life. I was searching what would I need to cope with all of this. And finally, during a family vacation, I encountered a teacher who taught Kundalini yoga on the beach. And this was on the island of Lanai in Hawaii. And it was like completely breathtaking, combination of this very flowy, breathy, meditative yoga and the setting in a lagoon that was completely devoid of people, like just a few of us on the beach. And when I returned to Los Angeles, I was totally determined to find another way to study it. And I found it in my then gym. And it was at 4 o'clock on Saturday, but I went for the next year very intensively, but only 3 of us attended it. And the class was eventually canceled. And then I found a Kundalini yoga studio, more like a yoga center or mindful practices center. And that became my home for the next 15 years. And that's where I gained my knowledge, a lot of my knowledge and interest. And I noticed really profound changes in myself, in my immune system, and my stress regulation, how I deal with stress. And I said, we need to study this. It's such a powerful tool.
Oh,
And the
my
first study
goodness.
I did, yes, was very shortly after I dedicated myself to the study of yoga. And then a man who I met during yoga teacher training actually sponsored the first study in dementia caregivers. This was like a match made in heaven, literally.
Oh, I love that. And, I can completely relate. When I was starting my graduate studies, I got so stressed out and knew I just needed to do something to manage stress. So for me, it was meditation. I'd already been a regular practicer of Pilates, which is very similar in certain ways to yoga. And it is a mind body exercise that utilizes the breath. And that was life changing for me. So I would love to know how that. I mean, you were saying that that person helped to um, mold and shape that study. Give me a picture of how you started to then study scientifically the use of breath work in healing.
So that first study in dementia caregivers was a very pivotal study for my career. It really resulted in a dramatic. I call it. I did a 720. Like they say, yeah, I did a 180 when they change direction. I did a 720. It was like this, completely unpredictable from how I started and where I was. Change in career direction completely, and then for the next now almost 20 years, I remade myself in a different way. So gained multiple new expertise that is now very handy. So at the time when I started, it was still a woo-woo kind of area. It was not regarded like a very a lucrative way to engage in terms of your career goals. In fact, I felt like I was put in the corner, labeled like a strange person. and then shortly after, I became very successful getting grants, and so they stopped questioning that direction. And also, my findings supported, the whole person health effects of mind body practice. It's not just your lungs or your heart; it's all of you. It's your brain, it's your immune system, it's your aging, that are responsive to all of these mind body practices, and breath included. Most of these practices include breath as like a key element. Like I study Tai Chi or Qigong or yoga, and all of this have commonalities, common practices.
So give us a picture. You have a kind of a wide breadth of research, but the research shows that breath work affects not only stress and mood, but neuroplasticity and even gene expression. Can you explain as simply as possible? I know that this is neuropsychology, but can you explain how something as simple as breathing can have such deep biological effects?
Right. So this is the best tool a human has in our possession in order to regulate our response to the environment. It's harder for us to immediately regulate, let's say, heart rhythm, but with our control of breathing muscles, we can control the rate of breath, the depth of breath, the flow, put our attention, concentrate as a meditative focus on the breathing, and that changes tone of the autonomic nervous system, parasympathetic versus sympathetic, because all of us are running on empty batteries, being stressed out all the time. And with the climate change and all the mass disasters that are happening around the world, we're constantly stressed. We don't have time to kind of recoup our system. And so at this point, people are searching for tools, easy tools to use for regulation of their emotions and stress, and boosting their resilience. So breath is like the easiest tool everybody has. It's free, doesn't require prescription, not going to the doctors. Once you learn pranayama or a way to breathe, or pick 3 to 5 tools in your breathing or otherwise basket of tools how to cope with life, you're well set with kind of determining your own destiny. Instead of being reactive to whatever is going on, you could take a breath, step back, assess the situation, and make a conscious decision instead of a knee-jerk reaction, being reactive to whatever is going on around you.
Absolutely. And this is something that I teach my clients as well. Can you explain how controlled timed breathing, which it really is, activates the parasympathetic nervous system. What is the mechanism that turns the parasympathetic nervous system on and the sympathetic nervous system off?
Right. It's the calming effect of slow, conscious, controlled pace breathing. And it's been determined by numerous studies that a breath, 4 to 6 breaths per minute, which is gets you into this coherent state at which your blood pressure drops, your heart rate drops, and as a result, you feel calmer. Yeah, also, you saw in my presentation at the AP that most recent research showed that all of the organelle structures in the brain are engaged in this breathing rhythm. Once you start telling your body, slow down, breathe slowly and deeply, close your eyes, feel calm, the calm descends on the body and the brain and the mind. And it's a big stop sign. When parasympathetic or vagus system are activated, it's a slow down time. Everything slows down. Your heart rate, your blood pressure drops. So people who are anxious and have this increase in heart rate and blood pressure, the breath is their friend, just to slow it down. And even if you just close your eyes and follow your breath consciously, that automatically slows down the rate of breathing. And the normal rate is between 12 to 16, 8 to 16 breaths per minute. Anxious people have a higher rate of breathing. So if you slow it to 4 to 6 breaths per minute, it really, tells your body, calm down, slow down.
So let me, if I'm getting this right, the slow controlled breathing then sends a signal up into your brain. Your brain synchronizes with the breath, and then it sends a signal to the rest of the body to activate this parasympathetic nervous system. Is that through the vagus nerve? Is that how the communication happens?
Well, there are multiple systems involved in stress response. It's immune system, it's hormonal system, and so yes, central system is sort of regulating all of these processes, but they work in unison. So once you start calming down, the cortisol levels drop. Adrenergic hormones that stimulate blood pressure, like the increased hypertension, also drop. Baroreflex. So it's multiple system response. It's not just brain or your lungs. It's also heart. It's immune system. And what of this deceleration in my research shows it immediately. This pattern of behavior, especially if sustained, if it becomes your default mode, tells the immune system to restructure and decrease inflammation. And so that's what we see in gene expression. So the change in gene expression or epigenetics is informed by your choices in life, your behavior, how you prefer to approach life, by your consciousness. So the consciousness dictates changes in genetics.
Hmm.
You know,
That's so amazing. Can you go into that a little bit more? And just for people who have never really heard of that, epigenetics is, a lot of people think that, oh, I was born with, this set of genes, and so I am destined to get cancer or whatever it is. And what we're seeing in science is that that's not true. You need a set of factors to turn that gene expression on. And a lot of those factors we're determining are stress, maybe environmental toxins, diet, especially, is one of them. That's my area that I always look into. But also, what is our mental state? And if we're constantly in stress, that creates inflammation, and that inflammation might turn on the gene expression. So, breath work itself, if you can explain it just a little bit more simply for our audience, it does what exactly for gene expression?
so it's the calm, the response, the effect, the downstream effect of controlling your breath. You're achieving calm. You're choosing to change your immediate reactivity to a calm, conscious response. It's your consciousness that controls your breath,
Mhm.
because most of our breathing is unconscious. We don't notice it. We're born with the first breath, we're alive, and then we die. It's the last breath that ends our body life. And um, so when we breathe, it's mostly unconscious mechanisms that are dictated by the centers in the brainstem, and one of them is called pre complex. There are close centers in the brainstem. That vagal nerve is close, has a nuclei next to breathing center. But then they go up in the brain, and they are connecting to locus ceruleus that is controlling noradrenergic input or stress response, and amygdala that is a fear center. And we're all in fear. In fact, all of the media wants us to be in fear. It's fear-driven society. So amygdala is what's lit up all of the time. The breathing pattern from the bottom up go to amygdala, but also to the centers in the frontal lobe that also talk to the lower structures. And that's what this talk from bottom up and top down are what's coming the amygdala is in fear. And
Mhm.
that amygdala prepares us to run from a bear, or a lion. That is an evolutionary response when we encounter danger. But we have lions and bears and earthquakes and tsunamis all every day. Basically, something happens. What is being amplified is by media and social media, television and social media, is that do you hear any good news? Do you have news
No.
for good news? It's all bad news.
Mhm.
And so our amygdala is very, very tired, and it influences reticular formation again in the brainstem. That because of it, we don't sleep well. Sleep is another factor, important lifestyle factor that comes down the system. So the one thing that I try to do, and of course, there are breathing practices for sleep. And the first thing I try to do with my patients, the first achievement is to regulate their sleep. And I work with long COVID now. That really results with the 98% percent of people not sleeping due to increased inflammation and stress of dealing with long COVID. So the first thing that I spend 50% of my time trying to get them to sleep and teach them breathing techniques and whatever mind body practices that help calm down the body, this reactivity to all the negative input from outside, and create this internal inward focus, which focusing on breathing would get you to. You focus on yourself, on your body function, breathing. It's called interoception. uh,
Mhm.
Paying attention to all the stimuli that are happening in your body, so you tune out all that is outside, which is not pleasant most of the time. And you just pay attention, close your eyes, and pay attention to your breath or your heart rate, or what's happening to your internal bodies. Like you can talk to your liver or your bladder or your kidneys and establish this mind body connection. It's turning inward rather than paying attention what's outside.
Oh, I love this more than anything. This is what I really try to incorporate with all of my clients, especially people who have a difficulty with eating, because oftentimes they're just dissociated from their bodies. They're completely maybe up in their heads, but they are not connected with the body. And I love that you talk about, the mind body connection. My question to you is, even if you learn all of these breathwork techniques, is it as effective if you're not working on what's going on in your mind? Do you need to coordinate the two? We live in this fear centered world. Does working on those thoughts while also working on the breath create more effective change in the body?
Um, so if you're talking about dealing with stress and trauma, or any kind of psychiatric disorders, even depression or anxiety or insomnia or anything else, breath could be a very potent ally. Like it's a tool for you. It's not a drug. You don't need a prescription. Once you learn a few types of breaths that do something for you, you could use it to regulate your body function so that you feel more empowered in controlling your life and your destiny.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
So, in
Yeah.
combination, it can be really helpful. But even on its own, even if you don't work on what's happening in your mind, if you were to focus on the breath, you would still see a lot of positive effects, correct?
Well, when you're calm, your mind is not as disordered, like you don't have to be in panic. If you're
Mhm.
bring yourself not, and the breathing is what brings the calm.
Mhm.
Our mind, you have to train your mind though, so it doesn't make sense not to pay attention or not to use breath to train your mind.
Mhm.
And that's a tool, and that's why I'm saying, it's a tool. You
Mhm.
don't use it once or twice, you use it constantly. So all of the studies establish if you do it for a while, it does change patterns in your brain. You're
Mhm.
not as reactive. Like in the first study of caregivers, we only asked them to do 11-minute practice chanting meditation called Kirtan Kriya. And we measured everything that happened to them, like in the brain. We did fMRI, we did PET scan, we did gene expression. This was the first study that did measured telomerase in humans, and the second
Mhm.
study measuring gene expression. All of the systems really changed. And this was a big revelation because none of it was known before that study. But also on something that we didn't measure, caregivers gain this knowledge. I have 15 minutes to myself. I have this practice. I can do it for myself instead of taking care of everybody else. And then after the study was over, which was only 8 weeks, they said, I have to continue this practice in order to benefit from it. They learned the lesson. I have to take time to take care of myself. Otherwise, I'll be sick and I'll die before my relatives with dementia. And that it commonly happens. So caregivers have 60% higher mortality than their peers who are not caregivers. Their cardiovascular disease and cancer rates are much higher than peers who are not.
Mhm.
So we see it very commonly that these people who are very, very stressed die earlier, and stress does promote senescence or aging. And this practices reverse cellular aging, and we've shown it with telomerase, and others have shown it with telomere lengths and
Go
uh,
into that just a little bit more. I think a lot of people are really interested in longevity and really I think don't understand telomerase itself. Give us a picture of that and why breath work actually did it increase the telomerase length
no,
itself?
telomerase is
Or
an
correct.
enzyme that takes care of telomere lengths. Since then, we've developed all sorts of other indices of aging, biological aging or cellular aging, like DNA clocks, aging clocks. And we do that now. Gene expression also tells a very nice story of restructuring of genes to promote to decrease inflammation, but also promote antiviral effects, protection against viruses, and promote neuroplasticity. So there are certain genes that are responsible for this action in the body, and they get activated. So they're mostly protective, but also they ensure your evolution, like anti-aging, they reverse biological aging, and they can promote health, or brain health, overall health.
Oh my goodness. So to sum it up for people, and I did get it wrong, it's telomere length, not telomerase. Telomerase is the enzyme that activates it. Is telomere length determines essentially your aging. And as we age with more and more inflammation and stress, when we're constantly in stress, the length of telomeres gets shorter and shorter. But you can do a lot of things to actually reverse that or even increase your telomere length. And a lot of that is involving, reducing your stress greatly working on your physical and your mental health. And your physical health can be through exercise, what we're eating. And what they show also that eating a whole food, plant-based diet helps to increase your telomere length and reverse your biological aging. So breathing alone, breathing, you guys, just breathing, free breathing can actually help you live longer and reduce your biological age. I want to just really emphasize that because that's simple and it's free. It doesn't involve any medication. It's something that you can practice regularly and it feels amazing. So, Dr. Lavretsky, we're out of time for this half of this podcast, but I want to get into types of breathing exercises in the next half of this episode. Would you be willing to model some breathing for us so that our listeners can take away some really powerful tools to help their health?
Yes, of course.
Yay. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. You have to come back for the second half of this episode because we have a premier psychiatrist and neuroscientist helping us with natural, free ways to increase our health and increase our longevity. Dr. Helen Lavretsky will be right back with you. Thanks for tuning into the ANEW Insight Podcast. Please remember, the contents shared on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. You can find us anywhere podcasts are streaming, on YouTube at my.anew.insight and at anew-insight.com under the ANEW Insight Podcast tab. And follow us on our socials at my.anew.insight on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more updates. Tune in next time and evolve with us.